Zhaniya Aubakirova presents a series of discussions about the place of Qazaq culture in the global world. Meetings with prominent public figures, candid conversations, collisions of opinions, and discussions about the most important things.
Hello dear friends. Today our guest is Alexey Rozinkin. My guest today is Alexey Rozinkin. He's a special pride of our conservatory. Alexey combines choral conducting teaching and financial coaching in an astonishing way. This young man amazes me with his remarkable personal growth and unexpected professional trajectory. He's an example that there are no limits to human capabilities. Hello, Alexey.
Good day.
It's always interesting to know how our graduates are doing after graduation. As I remember, you were a rather humble student, an introvert. You studied well, you won presidential scholarships, but still you mainly kept to yourself. And now I look at you and you're glowing. Your look is just dazzling.
Thank you, Zhaniya. I think the whole secret here is in one phrase. A person is not a photograph. He has no frames and boundaries. And all because from childhood, my parents have never limited me in anything. I think this fact played a key role in my development. I had friends who were constantly told by their parents, don't go there, don't do this, don't touch this, don't take it. They grew up a lot more uptight. While my parents raised me in a different way, they allowed me to try everything.
It's amazing that your parents raised their children in such a modern way back then. What do they do?
They are computer engineers. Back in the Soviet Union, they were engaged in the creation of these huge computing complexes. My father worked at the central bank, where the country's economy itself was counted on this technique. And my mother worked at the state publishing house that printed all the literature. And they also constantly improved. They traveled a lot. They traveled all over Europe before I was born. Then they returned to the Soviet Union just before its collapse. And then I was born. And my father allowed me to do literally everything I wanted. He tried to provide me with everything I needed. We were not rich, but I always had enough of toys, educational books. He did everything for us. Then, when my brother and I grew up, my mother went to work at school only to accompany us, so that we were somewhere near her. That is, she quit her job as an engineer and took up mathematics, physics, and computer science.
Now that we have peeked a little into your childhood, learned about how your parents raised you, I begin to understand you a little better. Tell us about this interesting story about a Buddhist monk and how there was a musical instrument in your house.
Yes, this is an amazing story. In fact, I didn't have an instrument as a child. I've been studying music for 4 or 5 years, but my parents didn't have the opportunity to buy a piano. In the 1990s, there was a terrible shortage and the instruments cost quite a lot. Piano cost just like a Volga car. It is clear that it was impossible to buy it with one salary, and we regularly went to thrift stores. They sold various equipment, televisions, tape recorders, and pianos. I loved going there because then I could play a live instrument, at least a little, for free. And so we were looking for an instrument for which we had enough money. Once in such a shop, we met a Tibetan Lama. He saw me, I was quite a child then, and he asked if I play music. My father answered yes, and said that we are looking for an instrument, however we can't afford to buy it yet. And then the Lama offered to give us his own. His daughters studied music, they grew up and left for Moscow. He was left alone and decided to leave for Tibet to continue his spiritual practices. And so he just gave us his instrument. It was very old, from the 1940s, all dried up to some incredible state. It couldn't hold a tune. As soon as you began to twist the pegs, they simply broke, and the string strings broke, but in any case, it was better than just a cardboard on which the keys were drawn.
Did your father draw the cardboard for you?
Yes, so that I can somehow study, that I would have where to put my fingers on and at least exercise properly.
When you talked about a Tibetan Lama, I immediately had this question. Is it fate? Is fate leading us? Do you believe in it?
You know, there is one more important point. He then told my father, "Your son has a great future."
Wow.
I remembered this phrase because my father repeated it to me. If not for this, I probably would have not remembered it then. But my father reminded me of this, and this phrase became magic for me. And to this day, I use it as a teacher. That is, when young students come to me, when they have some kind of germ of potential, you see it, and you can reveal it. But at the same time, the student is modest and keeps for himself. It is worth telling him, "I see potential in you. I see you have good inherent data. You just need to work. You need to study, hone your skills. You have a great future." His eyes immediately light up. Someone even happens to have tears in their eyes. They're welling up. This little technique allows a person to destroy those boundaries that he perhaps invented for himself.
But the Tibetan Lama just said it for no particular reason.
Yes, just like that.
Just because in his practice it's generally accepted to encourage a small child or young person like that.
Maybe.
To say, a great future awaits you, and each person begins to believe in it and begins to do more, to better realize his original potential.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, this is amazing. I have a question for you as a musician for a musician. Since I learned that despite having a business in a completely different field, you still continue to teach at the conservatory. How is it possible to do this?
I do it with pleasure because I really love music. I have 5 days a week when I do business, 1 day a week when I teach, and 1 day I have off. At least my partners were sometimes jealous. I remember there were controversial moments. I even had to take a break from teaching. I was simply had to choose between the conservatory and business. And I left the conservatory for 2 years. I had to do it consciously.
Because you were very busy?
Because there was a lot to do. There were many business trips, flights. It was necessary to pay great attention to business. But students also need time, but it was not enough. Now it all sorted out and came to this schedule. My students perceive it with some special interest that his teacher not only does it to make a living, but he does it because he is interested, because he loves it. I'm not teaching to make money for a living. I give myself completely, sincerely, in order to get some meaningful result from my students. I believe that this is the right approach when a person has realized himself and he does not need a material support. This allows him to share his knowledge with sincerity.
Alexey, tell me, do you teach music or do you teach life? Or do these things always go together in good teachers?
One cannot be separated from the other, because if you are raising only a musician, he will think only in the narrow sense of music. He will graduate from the conservatory, go to work, at best, as a teacher in a music school and work there all his life from beginning to end. He probably won't be able to fully realize his mission as a musician, to give people positive emotions, to give people joy. He simply will not know that it was possible that way. Yesterday, I had my first lesson with my students. I have 3 new freshman students. I started the lesson not from asking them to sit at the instrument and show me what they can do, but I asked them to tell me why did they come here after studying in college? For what purpose? Someone told me that he loves music and wants to do it. And one guy, Ulan, he said that he has a goal. He already teaches. He loves what he does, and he has students, small children, who are already winning prizes at contests here in Kazakhstan and online in Russia during a pandemic. They won different diplomas and medals. He is studying to be a conductor at the EC College. He plays the button accordion, dombra, piano. He does vocals all at the same time. He exercises for 6 hours a day. I have not seen anything like this for a long time.
What an interesting guy.
Yes, and he says, I have a goal. And it surprised me so much yesterday. I asked him, why did you decide so? He said that his piano teacher once said to him that he has the opportunity to reveal his potential and that he has a great future. Here it is. The secret repeats itself. People use this button, the switch of the future. and the person is already moving along a different trajectory.
Previously, I was definitely such a typical teacher. I was tough, strict, and it seemed to me that only this gives result. And over the course of my life, I realized that the most important thing is to inspire, so that the eyes light up, to awaken some kind of fantasy. And this approach is appropriate almost everywhere and in everything, because not only musicians can be brought up in this way. Let's talk about your business. At first, it seemed to me that you're engaged in accounting, because so often in your trainings and courses, you come across the word accountant. I thought you became a financier, but it turns out you became a manager. A manager who trains financiers or motivates or creates new opportunities for them. How would you describe your activity?
Manager, because I run a training organization. After all, what is this if not management? There are people who teach other people, people who develop curriculum, people who collect feedback, curate, mentor, and teach. And I am in charge of all of this, and therefore this is called management. Although I myself have such a mediocre relation to accounting, I'm married to an accountant. My wife is an accountant.
Well, in some cases you consult with her?
I am guided in taxes and accounting. I know these areas myself. That is, I do not practice, but I know everything they do.
It is important.
Working in this area, I interact with a huge number of accountants throughout Kazakhstan, about 140 to 180,000 accountants, according to various estimates, work in organizations. Business is unthinkable without the work of an accountant, because the more the company earns resources, money, the more people appear who want to plunder it, so that nothing remains, and the accountant is the treasurer, the finance minister, who knows where everything is at all times and helps the owner keep the business intact and increases its capital. And my role is similar to that llama I met. It is to say that a great future awaits them all, to tell them where to go. And to get there, you have to go through a long way of training with auditors, with dry numbers, tables, calculations, algorithms. In order for a person to not fall out of this process along the way, he must be motivated, inspired from time to time, and guided. guided. If, for example, there is a 3-hour event, then literally every hour there is a moment where I remind why they are here, why they are doing it, the whole reason. I always ask the question, the great Chinese question, why do you need this? Why did you come here? They begin to tell me that they came to improve their professional level, to enter a new position, to find a higher paying job and apply their knowledge, to realize their internal potential. That is, people have an understanding in their heads of why they need it, why they need to focus, why they need to work. The fact is that when a person forgets about the reason, then most likely he will lose his way and will engage in procrastination. Musicians also have it, don't they?
Absolutely. We suffer a lot and think that something will not work out in the process. But still, something pushes us, some kind of stubbornness. Please tell me, what kind of music do you like and what place does it occupy in your life?
I probably love interesting music. For me, it...
What do you mean interesting?
I love watching music. That is, imagine when you come to a museum, you look at paintings at first, you see just a painting, then you analyze what colors there are, see some images in it, come closer and begin to peer into the details, halftones and tones. Then you watch the plot. Guess what else is there? What nuances? What thoughts? What kind of references? At this level of my development, I listen to and perceive music in about the same way. When I hear it, I catch different intonations. What is in the foreground? What is in the background? What is happening? That is, I perceive music as a kind of canvas, like a painting.
Great.
And I am not limited only to symphonic music, academic music, piano music, because the sound of one instrument also has a foreground, a background. In general, there is some kind of narrative. There are many different elements in modern music, in electronic music, in folk music. That is, it is everywhere.
Exactly.
It was interesting for me to learn how to hear these little details, notice them, look at them. And when you found this little detail hidden on the canvas, you get real pleasure. It feels like you become one step closer to the author of this work, to his idea. This is a great pleasure, and therefore I do not limit myself to some genres now. I do not limit myself to some performers. If I hear that there is something interesting in this work, that a person put his soul, heart, his own personality into it, his ideas, then it has a place for consideration. I'm just trying.
Can you tell the difference between good music from mediocre? After all, there is a lot of it.
Yes, there is a lot of mediocre music, despite the fact that the performer seems to be great, outstanding, and the piece of music contains a huge number of notes, amazing technique, some crazy passages, but listening, you cannot find the main zest that turns a sound to music, something that makes you experience emotions, feel something, sympathize, and so on. I still think that the main goal of music and the task of a musician is to evoke emotions and feelings in a person. These are the goosebumps that I tell all my students about. I say, if you don't learn how to make a person shiver, you'll never succeed as a musician. You'll be just a sound extractor, sound presser, or whatever. And a person has come to you to experience emotions. Now the world lost its emotional feeling. It is tough out there. People are used to some endless stream of negative events on the internet, in the world, and so on. They come to a concert hall to experience something bright, sympathize, love, rejoice, cry, and maybe be sad. And when you press the key of the instrument, you should not just do it mechanically. No, you should feel, understand, invest something of your own, and convey it to the audience. And I think that if the music is of high quality, then it has all of this.
I noticed that people who are not professionally connected with music speak better about music. And from what you just said, my soul simply rejoices. But we, being inside the music, cannot always verbalize it like this. We just feel it. Well, our program, of course, in a broad sense of the word, is about culture. You are now somewhere in the middle of your life, with your achievements, your own view of the world. What can you say about your discoveries about our realities today? And most importantly, what unites us all? Can you elaborate on that?
Probably based on my experience and thoughts that excite me very much, or, so to speak, excite my consciousness at the moment. I would like to say that I realize that in life it is very important to know how to pursue. Why is this a problem? Maybe these are echoes of the time that our parents experienced when it was impossible to pursue or want something. It was impossible to wish for something your own. Everyone lived only according to the rules that were established by society, and this also affected us. And now, in order to discover something new, create something new, find inspiration for this, all you need to learn how to pursue and want. Sometimes you interact with people and ask them a question. What do you want? Most people say, I don't want anything. But you haven't gone anywhere. You haven't traveled and you haven't seen anything. You don't know anything. How can you not want anything? There are so many interesting and amazing things in this world, but a person says, I don't want anything. I realized this when my wife dragged me abroad for the first time, and I strongly refused. I thought, why spend such crazy money? Go somewhere if it's good in Kazakhstan. But she insisted. I went, and there's a different culture, different people, and I think why I've limited myself in this for so many years, and consciously. Now, if I am offered to travel, it is a great happiness. Communication and exchange of experience, cultural interaction, the opportunity to find out how people live, what they eat, what they think about, how they communicate, what just happens in their everyday life. This is very interesting, and if there is no such desire, then we limit ourselves very much. You need to want to professionally learn as much as possible about your business. You need to want to know about your body, what it is capable of, how you can move, how you can swim, run. I don't know, to engage in spiritual practices. We develop ourselves when there is a desire to know the limits of the possible. But it all starts with a simple wish. I want to try everything, I want to know everything, I want to discuss everything, I want to communicate with everyone, get to know others, and so on. For me, now is the time when I very much want to expand my boundaries in different directions, and not to live in a small world that I created for myself, and in which I feel comfortable. No, I want to push those boundaries too and learn more. Whether you like it or not in the end is another question. The most important thing is that I want to experience it, and I want to feel it.
Did you think you were a magician in a way?
Yes, all people are magicians in my opinion. They can create whatever they want, do whatever they want. It's magic. So I think that yes, our whole life is magic. It's just that someone fences himself off from this all, and this phrase, I can do anything, has become such a leitmotif of my personal life in the last few years.
Alexey, I thank you. It was so interesting. You are so wonderful, and I'm so proud that you are our graduate and that I had some influence on your life path, on your success. I wish you even more luck in the future.
Thank you.